Ohio, welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This week, helping me tackle all the biggest headlines is former butler to King Charles, Grant Harrold, and former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III, Dickie Arbiter. Thank you so much for being here today. We've got some great topics where I think that both of you will excel in helping me dissect. First of all, Dickie, King Charles hosted Nigeria's president for a rare state visit, the first of its kind in decades, signaling a renewed focus on UK-Nigeria relations. While the event included all the traditional royal ceremony, it also carried real diplomatic weight, with an emphasis on strengthening economic ties and showing cultural respect during Ramadan. The biggest picture here is the monarchy stepping into their soft power role, which we discuss so much in relation to King Charles's relationship with President Trump, that soft power role, using symbolism and personal diplomacy to reinforce Britain's global partnerships. What stood out to you visually as we received images and video of this visit?
I think the most important thing that stood out was the King's recognition of Ramadan. Ramadan actually finishes today. And in recognizing Ramadan, because the president is a Muslim, Nigeria is largely Muslim, and arriving yesterday as he did, there was no normal state visit lunch, which would normally take place because Muslims fast during the day. So it was his recognition of Islam. It was his recognition of Islam during his speech. I think the point that he made was basically no good dwelling on the part. In fact, I'm going to read one of the points that he did make. I do not look to for other words that dissolve the past, for no words can. Worthy of those, and he's an optimistic future, worthy of those who bore the pains of the past. So he's recognizing the past. He's not actually apologizing. And I think it'd be wrong to apologize, because you can't apologize for history. History is gone. It's done. But you can make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. So he recognized what happened in the past, and it happened in the past all over the African continent. The UK, not solely responsible. Middle Eastern and Arab countries were the leaders of it, of what went on. But let's push that to one side for a moment. It was his recognition of Islam. It was his recognition of Ramadan, the holy month. And I think that the fact that we've got a state visit from Nigeria, as you say, first time in decades, it's actually 37 years. Wow. Last president to come here from Nigeria was President Babangida. In 1989, and Charles and Diana paid a visit to Nigeria the following year when Babangida was still in power. In fact, he lost power in 93, having served sort of 7-8 years. So it's an important state visit in that the UK wishes to continue its trade relations with Africa, with the countries on the African continent, because if we don't, somebody else will jump in. Now, in the past, it was always the old Soviet Union, and I wouldn't put it past Russia to eyeing some of these countries to carry on where the old Soviet Union left off. So it is, in terms of soft power and trade and industry, it's a very important state visit.
Dickie, before I go to Grant, can I just ask you really quickly, will there be people upset about about the king acknowledging the Islamic faith in the way that he did? I mean, there have been rumors circulating over the last few weeks that the king had secretly converted to Islam.
Oh,
are there going to be
rubbish?
People? Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that from you.
Yeah, absolute rubbish. I mean, Grant will endorse that. Look, we're a multicultural society in this country. There's a very large Islamic community. They hold a lot of power and swaying electorate and voting for candidates in local elections. And we have to recognize that it's not just an Islamic community in the UK, it's a Christian community, it's a Jewish community, it's a Punjabi community. We are a multi-ethnic society. It just so happens that the president of Nigeria is a Muslim, and therefore you've got to acknowledge that. You can't shove it under the carpet, particularly as we're nearing the end of Ramadan, because there was a special prayer room set aside at Windsor Castle so that the president could pray, which is the right thing to do. And people get upset over the most trivial things. I think if they focus on what is really going wrong in this country, particularly with the government, is the economy. And let's get the economy going right. Forget about the other issues, because those are issues that don't really affect the majority of people in this country. And to suggest for a moment that the king has converted to Islam, absolute nonsense. These people have got nothing better to do, and they post these things on Twitter anonymously, not Twitter, X. Sorry, Mr. Musk, it's X now. They post these things on X anonymously, and there's no recourse. And quite frankly, it's not the sort of thing you dignify with a comment.
Oh, well, then I apologize for going there.
No, you're entitled
But
to
I
it
wanted to
because
go to the source. No,
you're the adjudicator in this one.
thank you. Thank you. Grant, from your perspective of, you still have really great contacts actually that work within the palace and kind of manage and handle events like this. What would the preparation for a state visit or an event like this, what would that look like? And are people taken aback when things are shifted so much in this case, like no lunch, specific prayer room? Are they pros where they're going to go, no problem, I'll have this handled within the next 10 minutes, 6 hours? Or is it like, oh, what do I do? This is a first time for me.
With the greatest respect, Dickie's probably more of an expert in this because he was at the palace when I was always at Highgrove. But I mean, I know from my colleagues and everything, yeah, and again, as Dickie's mentioned, that the king, being the gentleman he is, they plan these kind of things so that the fact of having somebody to prayer, the fact that the menu was changed, the fact that they were doing mocktails, that's just very much an organization. I mean, the house will be doing this for centuries, entertaining, and so they are pros at it. And I'm not saying that there's not, as Dickie probably would agree, there's not a bit of flustering goes on, behind closed doors with the kind of staff, trying to get things done. But they've done it so often, it's almost second nature, But on saying that, what always makes me smile, and again, I'm sure Dickie witnessed this at first hand. I didn't ever witness this, but the king and the queen were inspecting the table, and apparently the late queen used to do the exact same, and would pick up the most tiniest detail something was wrong. So talk about, no wonder there was pressure, because the big boss would be the one checking the table at the end. I mean, it was bad. It was bad enough doing a normal dinner, back at Highgrove or up in Scotland, where it's just family friends. When it's a state banquet, there's a lot more pressure. I mean, it's about making the best impression, which is what I think the Royal House are very good at doing.
Yeah, so Grant, looking at those images and videos from yesterday, do you give them an A++ on that state
Oh
visit?
yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, you look at it. Do you know what does make me smile? I did an interview a while back, and I was talking about the napkin fold. A bit boring, but the napkin, because everybody loves napkin folds, and I believe it used to be the Dutch bonnet. I think that was what the Queen preferred. And I made a really weird comment where I said, "Oh, I wonder if we'll start using the fleur de lis, the Prince of Wales feathers, because that was a favourite of the now king." And I demonstrated how to do it. And I thought this is going to be extremely embarrassing when at the banquet tonight it's not going to be that napkin fold. And guess what? It was the fleur de lis, and they seem to continue using it, which is great, because it's a very straightforward napkin fold. But again, so that's a very small detail. It's changed. The rest of it, as far as we could see, is the same. But I thought it was also interesting that the chargers or the placemats had ER, which is obviously, if I can say, I think that was a nod to the late Queen. But I thought it was, of course, it's beautifully done, and it does make me smile. I mean, the amount of work that goes into this. I mean, I remember watching a documentary many years ago where you saw the footmen, I want to say, on the tables actually polishing the tables and setting the candelabra and everything in place. So it's not quite like you and me laying up our tables at home. It's
No.
slightly different. It's slightly different.
Just going on from what Grant said, Kinsey, is absolutely right. The table's put up. It's 164 feet long, 9 feet wide, and the table is polished. You can't just walk down the table with a duster and polish it. The footmen actually put dusters on their feet, and they polish that way, and they go down the full length of the table. It takes days to set up. There's something like 2,000 pieces of cutlery, 700 glasses, table furniture, candelabra, 1,000 candles. It's a big operation, and of course the floral decoration, and to make sure that the microphone is in the floral decoration opposite the king and opposite the visiting head of state, so that they can be heard when they make their speeches. So it is a huge operation, but they are capable of catering for anything. You name it, they don't get flustered. They know exactly what to do. They know that if it's a Muslim visitor, that there will be mocktails, as Grant rightly says, but for other people, there was alcohol. So it caters for all people, whether they're Muslim or just non-Muslims. If they want alcohol, alcohol is available. It is a big operation, but it's something that the palace have been doing for centuries. Well, not palace, Buckingham Palace, because Buckingham Palace has only been used since 1837. But the royals have been used to doing these things, and they don't get flustered. They just get long hours in getting the thing ready.
Right? I bet. That sounds amazing. And now I've got to search for now I have to search for the video of the footman walking down the table.
I think, Dickie, I might be wrong because you probably would remember this. I think it was 1992. Was there not a documentary about, and they followed the Queen? Because I watched
it. It was called Elizabeth R. It was to mark the 40th anniversary of the Queen's accession. It was made by the BBC, and they don't exactly walk. They almost skate down the table because that's the only way you're going to get a shine on the table. It's quite an interesting operation.
This is how Dickie does his table now.
Yeah, Dickie twirling around on his dining room table. I can just picture it. Also, Grant, you need to post a video of the fleur-de-lis napkin.
I did. I did it last night.
Last night?
Yeah. I actually did one of my Instagrams, and I did just again. It was guessing that that's the napkin fold. It's so nice because the comments, people are so kind. But again, as Dickie probably witnessed it as well, it's one of the most easiest napkin folds. I mean, it's so simple, and people are loving it, and obviously they're having a go at it. But I think it's quite nice if you do a dinner party anyway. I think it's always nice having folded napkins if you've got the time and you've got them.
The skill. Dickie, I was so tickled this week over the pictures and the video of Prince William on a bicycle. He surprised Greg James by joining him on his comic relief charity bike ride across the UK on a tandem bike. He's not wearing like bike apparel, but he does look very comfortable. The unexpected moment happened to boost not only the energy of Greg, who's completely surprised by Prince William's presence, but it raised so much awareness that he raised over £1 million for this initiative. William praised the effort and highlighted the importance of supporting vulnerable communities while keeping things light. He joked and was silly and fun throughout the bike ride. We got video on social media. They were shooting him from behind, from the back, from the side. It's another great example of Prince William's hand-on approach to charity and a well-timed royal cameo that brought even more visibility to comic relief. I'm just so grateful when I see moments like this, when times seem scary when it comes to the future of the royal family. And then here comes Prince William with a smile, with a creative initiative that I know is likely someone's great idea behind the scenes. What was your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction to it was that the royals were showing what they do, how they do, and why they do it. William joining the bike ride was important to him, was important to the charity. And you have to ask yourself, it raised over £1 million. Would they have raised that amount of money had William not been there? It does put into context why the royal family are there, why they are patrons of organizations, because without them, the charities would be struggling for money. And I'm reminded of 1994, when Diana backed out of all her charities. They felt a very, very cold economic draft. Their revenue dropped because what happens is that a royal is a patron. A royal goes along to an engagement. For example, on one occasion, it was to help the aged. They were having a big lunch for something like 500 people at the Hilton Hotel in London. There was a pre-lunch, of which the big donors were invited. And for months afterwards, the donors would say, "Oh, I had lunch with Diana the other day." The fact that there were 500 other people in the room is neither here nor there. But it is because the opportunity of big donors and any donor of actually pumping the royal flesh that they do give the money. And that's why the royals are there for charities to be able to raise the funds they need to manage the charity. Princess Royal's been patron of the Save the Children Fund since the 1970s. Why does she do it? Because she believes in what they're doing. They're a global organization. They believe in what she's doing, and that's why they're a successful organization.
So can I just interrupt you for a second to say, and that's why it feels so unethical that Meghan Markle is charging people 3,000 Australian dollars to do this.
Well, come on, they're in need of money, aren't they? They've been dropped by Netflix, they're dropped by everybody else. Hollywood's not exactly beating a path to the door. You've got to earn a buck somehow, haven't you?
But it's like they're taking the Diana playbook, to your point, and they're just removing the charity element, and that feels really gross.
Well, it is gross. It is gross. But then you
poor Grant. Poor Grant is always so sweet. Grant never says anything critical. Grant's like, don't show my face during this part. I'm the nice one. But I'm sorry that I apologize. Or I'm sorry that I interrupted you, Dickie. Please continue. I just wanted to make that point because what you were saying reminded me of what she's doing right now.
Yeah. The royals understand their role with charities, and charities understand their role. They don't take advantage of the royals, but they're grateful for the role that the royal plays within that charity and helping to run the charity and make the charity successful, because without them, they would be struggling for money, because there are so many demands of the British people today to donate to charities. Every day on television, there are adverts to donate £5, £10, £2.50 to all sorts of charities. Grant will bear this out. And people just don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to appeal to people who do have the money, who can give vast amounts of money. And the way to do that, soft power through the royal family.
Now, Grant, I hate to put you on the spot, but we're talking about Prince William's really sweet, cute, adorable, funny personality. And for anyone that missed our one-on-one chat about your book, do you mind reminding anyone that didn't, or do you mind reminding the audience that did say, but giving the audience that didn't see a hint at Prince William's personality? You get a spray tan, you're standing in the kitchen. Prince William has overheard that you had a spray tan because it caused a little bit of a controversy in the house. Can you walk us?
I think he had from his father, because, and Dickie will probably find this quite funny because obviously known the family, but I remember doing the dinner after. I don't know why. I don't know what made me get a spray tan. Anyway, I got a spray tan, and I remember going back in that evening to do dinner, and I'll never forget. It was now King and Queen, and I remember he didn't look at me, and he looked over at Queen Camilla and he said, "What's that smell?" And she said, "It's him," pointing at me. And of course, he looked to me, he said, "Oh God, what's happened?" And I said, "I had spray tan." And he's like, "What went wrong?" And I said, "Oh, I picked the wrong color." He went, "The wrong color?" He said, "You look like an Oompa Loompa." There's this kind of. And anyway, I then got banished. I wasn't allowed to finish the dinner.
Yeah.
I was home. In fact, not only was I sent home, and Dickie will know my kind of bosses back then, but the butlers then, they wouldn't let me back for about a week. And then it was the following week I saw William, and I remember when he saw me, and he couldn't help but laugh. He just looked at me and he said, what were you thinking? And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I just, I went in and I thought, well, this would be a great idea." And I remember what him saying, "Is it everywhere?" And I went, "Everywhere." And he went, "Everywhere." I said, "Everywhere." He said, "Everywhere." And I said, and I thought, "Where's this going?" I said, "Yes, everywhere." And he said, "Can I see?" And I said, "See what?" He said, "Can I see your toes?" And I had to take my socks and shoes off so you could look at my orange nails, which kind of made me giggle that they all thought it was his. I mean, as Dickie would agree, the thing about the royals that I experience, they love a bit of humour, don't they, Dickie? They like when something goes wrong or not to plan. Instead of getting stressed or angry, they find it funny. They like it when something goes wrong because it's something different, and that's what I liked. I'm not saying that sometimes things go wrong and of course they get frustrated, but 9 out of 10 they find it funny, especially if it's a staff member something's gone wrong, and that's what I thought was quite fun getting to see that side of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I see a silly Prince William moment, I think of you and I think of your toes, just so you know, not to make this conversation weird. Dickie, I imagine that you were the least surprised person when Variety released their expose this week inside Harry and Meghan's falling out with Netflix, where they really break down some of the details when it comes to, because as ever, to steal Meghan's line, when Meghan and Netflix severed ties for the As Ever brand, there was a glowing goodbye. Well, perhaps we'll do some, a holiday special in the future. We wish her all the best. We're so impressed with her. But the reality is, according to Variety, they talked to 6 different sources within Netflix that things were not hunky-dory. One of the allegations I found incredibly compelling was that Ted Sarandos wants lawyers on the phone when he talks to Meghan Markle. He wants backup. There was also a story about how if Meghan didn't like what was being said during a strategy meeting on Zoom, she would cut her mic off, cut her video off, and just disappear for a significant amount of time, which seems very childish. Stories about how when Meghan didn't like something that Harry was saying, she would touch him on her shoulder or on his leg and talk over him and kind of run him over and shut down his thought process. That Netflix was upset about the Oprah interview because it was giving away so much that they had felt like they paid for with their contract, that Meghan went in and asked for changes to be made to the initial docuseries because Prince Harry needed exclusives to give to Penguin Random House. Juicy stuff, Dickie. What's your reaction to this expose in Variety?
Paranoia. It beggars belief. I mean, you talking about accusations against Meghan that she's pushing Harry out of the way or stopping him saying things. If you look at video of them arriving, particularly in the UK, she's always the one that's sort of slightly out in front when she's not the royal. Harry was the royal, and Harry's the one in front, but she muscles her way to the front. It's there in full glorious technicolor. But in order to counter these accusations, they're using lawyers. Why dignify it? If let it wash, they're dignifying it. And quite frankly,
they're doing the same with the Tom Bower book. They're doing the exact same.
If that's all you've got to do, no wonder you're running out of money because you're spending it on lawyers. It's only the lawyers that win in these things. The principals don't. So what I say is grow up. Get yourself a job. Do something that you've got talent to do. Television is not your forte. Acting is not your forte because Hollywood's not beating a path to your front door. Because if they were, you wouldn't be doing As Ever on Netflix. You'd be doing.
And you wouldn't be doing a 3-day retreat in Australia where women are paying $3,000 to share a room.
My daughter was on. Victoria was on. I think it was Channel 9 or Channel 7, and they said, "Would you pay 2,000 Australian dollars for that?" She said, if I had 2,000 Australian dollars, I'd go to Greece.
Exactly. That's so cute. That's so cute. Grant, I think I could also translate what Dickie just said as never complain, never explain.
Oh, yeah.
Do these two not learn a thing from the British royal family, that a lot of these chaotic headlines slowly disappear because the royals just don't acknowledge them?
Yeah, and I mean, as Dickie mentioned it, it's a bit like, that thing about, as he said, Meghan walking in front of Harry, the kind of royal etiquette, the protocol. I mean, look at the late Queen and Prince Philip, always a few paces behind. Queen Camilla, always a few paces behind the King. Catherine, always slightly just, that's the etiquette, that's what's done. And the way that they kind of behave and the things they do, is because it's just it's not great. It's really bad. And do you know what? Okay, they wanted to walk away from it. Fine, that was their choice. I mean, I think again, if the King and William could, have a different life, I have no doubt they probably would choose a different. Who wouldn't? I mean, I think because Dick and myself have been there, we know what it's like. We know what the pressures and everything. And I know the King once said, it'd be wonderful just to be a farmer. to be a farmer and have a normal kind of life. But they don't have that luxury. And Harry's had, that luxury where he could and did walk away. But then it's almost like they keep dipping back in. It's almost like they don't know what they want. And as Dickie said, it's almost like, why can't they? I was just thinking when he said that, I was thinking, why can't they just, I don't know, set something up and do something separate? And I'm sure they could be successful in something else quite easily. But it just seems strange that they keep, and these tours, these royal tours that they keep doing is interesting. I don't know if they've got any, I doubt they've got any kind of support. I mean, I don't even know if he tells his father when they have these, if they have conversations about it, or if he just does it. But it's just it's all very strange. And I mean, we used to talk about, I used to always be always on the fence, I always try to be, I always see the positive and everything.
Yeah.
But I've got in recent, setting in the last year, speaking to people and hearing things, even I'm now thinking, yeah, I'll agree, even I'm now thinking, there's something, how do I word it? Something not quite kosher
Oh,
kind of
okay.
going on.
That's a very grand
So
response. It's not kosher.
I just, wish they could just make that break and just do something else. And all these legal battles, again, as Dickie would probably correct me, but I think the late Queen only ever had two legal battles, and that was with the press. I don't know, Dickie probably knows it well, over something. And that was in her life. I think it was in her lifetime. Dickie will correct me on that. With these two, it seems to be every other week.
Right.
Which is it's just undignified, I think.
Yeah.
That's just my view.
But is that a quick cash grab for Harry? Is that the only way Harry's making cash these days? I mean, well, to Dickie's point, though, the attorneys are making the biggest chunk.
Yeah, but again, do they really need money that desperately? I don't know. I'm not, surely they've got enough. Maybe I'm being Scottish here saying this, but surely they've got enough to be able to get by. It doesn't really make sense.
When you buy a big house in Montecito and then you've got the running costs, then you pay for security, and then you travel all over the place, sometimes in somebody's private jet.
Well,
Sometimes
also,
you pay for it.
Dickie, I think Meghan and Harry are the biggest investor in as ever. And that Variety article states that there's $10 million of product that hasn't been sold yet.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all. When Harry and Meghan left, Harry was very, very clear that they wanted to be independent and financially independent. Fine, if you want to do that, drop your titles and go and do something worthwhile. But they've traded on their titles for the past 6 years. And it's only because of their titles that Netflix beat a path to their door, Spotify beat a path to their door, Oprah interviewed them. Without those titles, they wouldn't have even got through the front door. So they've got to really now switch off from everything, take a deep, hard breath and decide what it is they're going to do. Now, I know, quite frankly, that Harry would love to go to Southern Africa, say Botswana or Namibia, or even South Africa, to go into the bush and do game conservation. He loves it in the bush. But that's not Meghan's idea. She couldn't get a manicure there or a pedicure, and she couldn't get a facial, and her hairdresser.
She couldn't get her photographers there to snap her paparazzi photos.
Photographers wouldn't go there. They need a lot more money than they're getting. So where this is going, I really don't know. I don't think they know themselves where they're going, because everything they seem to touch fails. And when they do something on Netflix, it doesn't get an audience. 2 million people watch. How big is Netflix's audience?
Right. I mean, there are literally videos of people setting their farts on fire on YouTube that have more views than that, Dickie. And I'm sorry to use the word fart in your presence. I respect you more than that, but now I've done it.
No, please do. It's a very descriptive word. It says everything.
Let me ask you, Dickie, before we move on to the next topic, because I thought of you when I read this headline. And I like Richard Kay. I've never met him, but I like Richard Kay. But were you annoyed at all by the headlines about how Diana didn't think that Prince William wanted to be king, so she was preparing Harry to be king? Isn't that kind of an insulting headline as we literally watch Harry spiraling in 2026?
When you think about that headline and when it was written so many years, almost 30 years after the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, you've got to say, is it genuine, or is it just a headline to sell newspapers? And my guess is a headline to sell newspapers, because if you look at the body copy, there's not much about it in it.
Right.
And if you look at headlines today in most newspapers, they bear very little resemblance to what is actually written. The headline writers and the copywriters are two different animals. and they probably don't speak to each other. And I think it's outrageous for Richard. He's a good writer, very good writer, but to suggest that is absolute nonsense, because what he said was that William said he didn't want to be king, and Harry is alleged to have said, well, if you don't want the job, I'll have it.
Yeah.
It's just not plausible.
Right. In Grant, I don't know if you feel like you're in a position to
Grant would have had access to the kids.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know if you feel like comfortable sharing this, but did you feel like you were watching Prince William be groomed to be king? Like, were you watching
yeah, there was never really I mean, again, Dickie knows Hagrid probably quite well, and I remember when we were the one that would normally go out and spend time with his father on the estate and learning about the kind of land management and the runnings of Highgrove and the duchy farm. And, I'm not saying Harry didn't sometimes accompany them, but Harry would be off doing his thing. He would be off, I don't know, at the pub or whatever. So I didn't see any sign of Harry kind of being trained up for that role at all. I don't even think it was even crossed their minds. God, obviously it would be unfortunate with the death of one for that to happen. So I don't even think that's just a thought that's way at the back of the memory in mind, I suppose. And so no, it was very much William was there, but there wasn't like again. I'm looking at Dickie because he remembers the late Queen better than that I knew her. But I mean, I think the late Queen, when she was trained for the role as well, it was very similar to, I imagine, William and his father, where I use the word shadowed, where I think I've seen footage of the George VI and his daughter, where she would spend time with them. They would do tours together. She would spend time in his office with them. They would, they were always kind of in each other's company, where that's basically learning the role. It's not, there's no qualification at the end of it. There isn't an exam. It's not like going to school. They just learn in their footsteps, which is exactly what William did with his father. That's how it's done. It's as simple as that. There isn't you don't get a certificate at the end of it.
You don't get like a book, how to.
No,
Royalty for Dummies. Meghan could write that, Royalty for Dummies. No.
I'll give you an example about William. Diana had a reception at Kensington Palace at the end of 1992, after the separation was announced, to thank all her charities for the work that they were doing. And at the reception, was in Kensington Palace State Apartments. At the reception was William, 10-year-old William. And she actually asked William if he would make the speech to thank the charity workers for all their hard work. And without batting an eyelid, he stood there without a piece of paper, thanking the charity workers for the work that they were doing and helping his mother in doing the work that she was doing. He felt quite comfortable with it. The only thing that William didn't like, and Grant will bear this out, were the incessant photographers.
I think he called them tographers when he was a little boy. Yeah. He didn't like the tographers.
They were in his life from the beginning. I remember before his second birthday, there was a photo call in the walled garden, which is just outside Diana's apartment, Diana and Charles's apartment, although latterly it became her apartment exclusively. And he was not yet 2 years old, and it was a photo call. There were television cameras there. There were photographers there. And he was just an 18-month-old walking around looking inquisitively at cameras. But he was introduced to them at that young age. And I think that was probably wrong. But the royals, Charles and Diana, were bowing to a bit of pressure because he hadn't been seen properly. And they thought, well, he's going to be 2 shortly. Maybe this is the opportunity. And this was really the start of his loathing of photographers. He lives with them now, but he manages them now.
He does. That's the difference. He does a great job managing them. And unlike Meghan and Harry, that literally have zero pressure to show us their children, I couldn't care less about their American babies. And Meghan throws Lily out anytime she needs to promote something she's about to sell. But I want to say, too, to your point, Dickie, I think one of the things we remember in the States, at least, one of the main campaigns and initiatives we associate with Diana, it was the sale of her gorgeous wardrobe. And that was Prince William. To his credit, that was Prince William whispering in her ear, why don't you auction off your dresses for charity. I mean, I know she did amazing things for AIDS, but I really do think we associate her with fashion. We associate her with this incredible auction. And that was a tiny person's leadership skills. That was her son.
Very, very much so. And Diana actually put British fashion on the world map. She always wore British fashions. Catherine's doing that today. She wears other fashion houses, but mainly British. High street, off the shelf, she wears. So it's important what they do. But William taking that initiative, well, basically you don't wear them anymore. Let's sell them.
Yeah.
And sell them for a good cause.
Yeah.
And Americans, of course, would buy them.
Yeah.
We don't have the money over here, you see. You got the money over there.
But yeah, I think that that's another great example of somebody that understood what his future held and was making educated suggestions based on that future. Before I let you go, I'm really excited for this new series called The Lady that's on BritBox. Natalie Dormer's newest series. It dramatizes the true story of Sarah Ferguson's friendship with her former royal dresser Jane Andrews, who was convicted of murdering her boyfriend in 2001. Now, Dickie, of course, I'm curious to know if you knew any of these characters in real life, but I'd also like your response to the fact that in September, following some of the revelations about Sarah's relationship, her closeness, supreme friend, she says in an email, Jeffrey Epstein, the actress that plays her announced that she wouldn't promote The Lady and she was going to donate her salary to charity. She said, since completing the project, new information has come to light that makes it impossible for me to reconcile my values with Sarah Ferguson's behavior, which I believe is inexcusable. I mean, talk about having principles in Hollywood. We don't see that very often, Dickie.
We don't see that very often. I think it's very commendable. The whole idea of making a docudrama.
Oh, I know. Don't judge me, but I'm excited for it, Dickie. Don't you dare judge me right now.
I think the whole idea of making a docudrama out of a tragedy is a bit sick.
It's morbid. I know.
It is morbid. I'm not sure what its viewership was like. I never watched it. Couldn't be bothered.
It's just coming out right now. It's a newer project. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to watch it. I can't be bothered. I did.
Wait. So did you know these? Did you know any of the people involved?
Well, I knew Jane. I didn't know her. I'd met her once or twice.
Oh wow!
Because
you met a murderer, Dickie.
I met a murderer before she was a murderer, though. But that was around the palace. I met Fergie. In fact, I knew
she
Fergie.
Likes to have her toe sucked, which is that's an odd thing
that sounds
reconcile.
pretty awful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even if they're covered in licorice, it still sounds pretty awful.
Especially then.
But yeah, to make a docudrama out of a tragedy of two women, one who went to jail for murdering her boyfriend, and the other one who should be in jail for having conned everybody out of money and going broke. But hey ho, life is what it is today, isn't it? There are no standards.
Yeah, I mean, Grant, we're talking about this bizarre show. We're talking about Harry and Meghan's Netflix deal. There is just an appetite for royal content, even if it's royal adjacent. There's just a real appetite for it worldwide, isn't there?
There's a huge appetite, and they're all family aware of that, because they would never use the word brand, and they would never, but they'll be aware that for them it is their brand, and there is a huge appetite, and myself and Dickie, I think we realize that because Kinsey, like Dickie, I'm always on the I think me and Dickie, I don't know how we don't meet each other on these cruise ships because we all do the cruise ships, and people are fascinated. When you get them coming to our talks and coming, wonderful people, really interested in our royal family. And it's funny when they come up to you and they want to shake your hand, they want to say hello to you because they say, it's the closest you get to the royals, which is a terrible thing to say, but it shows you the power of our royal family, the power that it has and the reach that it has. And so many people saying that despite everything that's going on, how lucky we are to have a royal family, which of course I agree with. But it's great. I mean, it's amazing. And it's nice. I love being able to kind of go around promoting them and saying how lucky we are to have them. So I don't know how on earth I bumped into Dickie, as we literally cross paths all the time off on these trips sometimes.
That's
I
so
think
funny.
what we mustn't forget is that we have a royal family. We have a king who is head of state, took over from his mother, who had been on the throne for 70 years, provided continuity and stability. People say, well, you know, maybe this is the end of the monarchy with the death of the Queen. No, it isn't. Some people are saying that because the Queen was with us for 70 years. Most people didn't know any other monarch. Now they know that Charles is there doing a very good job. And what is the answer if we get rid of the monarchy? Trump, Macron,
Keir Starmer,
President Starmer, President Blair. No, I think we're good with what we've got. Yes, they rise and fall in popularity. It's generational. I think young people are not particularly interested in the monarchy. They'll say so in opinion polls. I don't rate opinion polls because it depends on the question you ask. If you ask the question for the person who has commissioned the opinion poll, you're going to get the answer that they want. And the answer they want is that the monarchy is on its last legs and young people are not interested. But it's generational because the 20s are not interested. By the time they get to their 40s or 50s,
you are. Yeah.
Because they see how reliable they are, how, I won't say honest is the wrong word. They are reliable.
They're consistent.
They're consistent. They provide continuity where a government does. A government comes and goes in 4 years, 3 years, 5 years. The monarchy doesn't. Last monarch was 70 years. The previous one was 15 years, a little over 15 years. This one, I hope, will go on for quite a long time. He has a cancer, but you know, he could be in remission and he could go on for another 20 years. He's going to be 78 in November, and he could go on for another 20 years. But let's hope he does, because I don't think it's right for William to be thrust into something while he's still got a young family. We've seen what's happened to children of monarchs who parents weren't around, like Charles and Anne were without their parents because they were off doing the job. William and Harry went without their parents because their parents were off doing the job. William has that luxury of being with his growing family. So, you know, let's not get rid of the monarchy just yet or ever, because they provide continuity, they provide stability, and they are a talking point that when things go wrong, the monarchy is always there.
Right. And I think that if we see King Charles here in April, I think you're going to see how important the monarchy is to our special relationship. Because I don't think my president likes your prime minister very much, but he loves your king.
Well, nobody likes our prime minister. I don't think Grant likes our prime minister either. I don't think anybody likes him. But we can't get rid of him because we need an election. And they won't have an election until 2029. But yes, Trump will make full use of this state visit. There won't be a prime minister, so there won't be a distraction. And I hope he's only there for 2 days. Well, 3 days, I think. Washington, New York, and somewhere else that hasn't been outlined. But it will be good, and it is good for that special relationship. You have a special relationship between head of state and head of state, but not between head of state and head of government.
Right, exactly. Well, agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Dickie Arbiter, Grant Harrold. What handsome gentleman I got to spend my day with. I'm just a lucky girl. Let us know if you agree with us, like I said, in the comments, because we're curious to hear your take. Am I morbid for watching the lady? Dickie says yes, but he will forgive me at the end of the day. We will see you again next time. Bye, everyone.